Hello and welcome to today's livecast. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and it is July 16th here. We are, for the first time ever, delivering Vantage to customers. So we are actively shipping Vantage right now to people like you if you've ordered Vantage. And it's really exciting for me to say that because I've been working on this game for so long. So the quick Vantage shipping update. I have a shipping update if you are curious about that. Let's run down the shipping update. So in the US, Miniature Market has now received the accessories that they were waiting on. So Miniature Market has shipped around 1,000 champion orders, and then they have a number of other champion orders that have accessories that they're going to start shipping out this afternoon probably, and then a lot more over the next few business days, and then they'll get to non-champion orders after that. In Europe, they have they're about maybe a third of the way through. And then in Canada, also about a third of the way through. And in Australia, they're about halfway through their orders. So I don't know the exact time that your order is shipping. You'll get a tracking notification when it ships. But if you're a champion, you will probably see that tracking number by early next week at the latest. Maybe we'll say Wednesday next week at the latest. And then non-champion orders will start after that. It's been great to see people talking about the game online, sharing their photos, their stories, their questions. There are lots of questions, and that's okay. Universally, I do want to say, if you're playing Vantage and you run into something that is confusing, that's okay. You're welcome to pop online and ask a question. But I would say in general, rather than interrupting the flow of the game, go with what we put in the rulebook as the universal rule of thematic fun. Choose the thing that is the most fun while also being thematic in that moment to continue, and then go online later and ask for the correct rule if you want. You can also look in the glossary. The glossary has entries for all the different types of cards in the game. That is a minor spoiler what types of cards are in the game, but you can, once you discover a type of card, you can look it up in the glossary. But yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that. I see a lot of very specific questions, and I love the specific questions. We are always happy to answer them. But I hope you don't let that interrupt the flow of your game ever. Just keep on going and choose the thing that is the most thematically fun for that moment, and go back later and figure out what the correct answer was. And when you do that, if you do post questions online about Vantage, it is really helpful for us if you are able to post as much context as possible. Specifically, if you can include a photo of whatever you're looking at that is a little confusing, whether it's a location or a specific card in your tableau, or even an entry in the rulebook. If you don't take a photo from, or not the rulebook, but the storybook, or you can just write out the text. Otherwise, it's a bit of a challenge for us to find. We could do it. We can look up all this information on different cards, storybooks. But since you already have it right in front of you, it's much easier for us to provide a quick and accurate answer if you just take a photo of what you're looking at and post that under a little spoiler warning. Matt asked, how many total champion orders are there? Matt, I don't know the exact answer. I know total across our 5 web stores, we have I think it's around 12,000 orders at this point, and that is including our wholesale store. We do have a store where we sell directly to retailers, but I don't know how many of them are champion orders total. I guess around half, maybe. So I see. Looks like Julie started her first game of Vantage. She says, "Do you have a preferred way to avoid spoilers when talking about the game online?" Julie, that's a good question. Something I think we'll continue to navigate on an ongoing basis. In general, if you have a very specific question about like a specific card or something, I would hide it under a spoiler warning. Like give kind of a little bit of context about what you're about to ask about, but don't assume that anyone knows the thing that you're talking about. Like, for example, I think I've said out loud, I put in playthroughs that there are animals in this world, but even the inclusion of animals in this world was kind of a secret until I did that playthrough that included an animal. So I be aware that the types of things in the world are also minor spoilers. And so I would post like a general question and then put specifics in the comments. So someone just scrolling through BGG, seeing like the titles of threads or on Facebook, that they don't spoil anything from the title of the thread, but if they want to go deeper, then they know they're getting the potential spoilers when they look at the post. Jason says, are the sales for Vantage what you had hoped for? Yeah, I think it's right along the same lines of what I was hoping for. We made 50,000 copies in the first print run. I think we are definitely on track to sell through that 50,000 copies. Ideally, when we make a first print run, The correct amount is an amount that lasts us around 5 months, like 4 to 5 months, both on our web store and to distribution and retail. And so we might not quite have enough for that. And Vantage is released at a time where it's tough for us to start a reprint in time for the holiday season. I don't think that will be possible. But for now, I think for the next couple months, I think we're okay, especially with the number of copies that we reserved for the web store compared to how many we reserved for distribution. Steven says, how did you find the artist for Vantage? Steven mentions that there was a post from Soren, one of the 3 artists on that I shared on the Facebook group yesterday. How did I find them? Valentina, how did I find her art? It's been so long. It's been 8 years since I found these artists. It started with Valentina. I think I found her art on ArtStation. I could be wrong about that. Soren and Emilian. I think Soren's art I also found on ArtStation. And then Emilian, I feel like Emilian may have submitted his portfolio to us at the right time. And I was like, oh, I'm looking for an artist to do some specific types of illustrations. He ended up doing way more than I thought he would ever do for the game. I think that was how I found Emilian. So a combination of me looking online for the right artist on ArtStation, I believe, and artists filling out our job application was kind of a catch-all for anyone who wants to work with us in any way, including a bunch of artists fill out that form. Ray also looks like Ray played a solo game. He says he's going to try to teach his game group how to play. He started with a solo game. That's a good way to do it too, Ray. I think the solo game has the exact same vibe as the cooperative game, except that you're not cooperating with other players. But you don't have to learn any different sets of rules for the solo game than the cooperative game. Steven says, does your Canadian distribution center have any spare parts? My copy has double time tokens and no health. Email already sent. Steven, this is a great question. The correct way to submit a replacement parts request isn't by email, isn't to our fulfillment centers, but it's via our replacement parts form. You can find this on our website. I'll share my other screen here if I can pull this up real quick. It's actually probably pretty easy for you to find if you just search Stonemaier Games replacement parts form. It's a pretty robust worldwide system. We have a replacement parts system around the world. And if you sent that email, you'll have someone reply to you to say, please fill out a replacement parts form, because it goes to different people. So here, I have it up on our website right now. Let me share my other screen, Steven, so I can show you. And part of the reason for this is that our fulfillment centers are different than the people who send out replacement parts. Let's see here. I'll share my screen to show you where. So if you are looking on a web browser at our website, here we go. So if you're at our website and you go to About, right under About is replacement parts. So just go to replacement parts, click on this link right here at the top, and fill out the form there, and we'll get it to you as soon as possible. And Steven, I'm sorry that your game came with some exchange parts. I actually had the biggest scare so far in Vantage yesterday. Someone emailed me and said that they were looking through one of the storybooks and noticed that an entire page was missing. And one page missing in a storybook, a stapled storybook, actually means 4 pages missing because it's a spread. That scared me a little bit. I was like, oh no, did I somehow miss an entire page? But no, the page fortunately is there. It is there. It just wasn't in their copy. Somehow in their copy, it didn't get stapled in. Mistakes happen at fulfillment centers. We can very quickly and easily fix those mistakes and help you get past it if you're trying to continue to play the game right now while you wait for the replacement parts to arrive. Steve says, will mats and upgraded components fit in the box? They will fit in the box with a little bit of lid lift for the player mats. Justin says, I know expansions are off the table, but do you foresee additions down the line like alternate art characters, maybe more enhanced components? Justin, Vantage is completely complete the way it is in terms of all the interconnected mechanisms and gameplay. The only thing that could possibly come afterwards are more accessories, like quality of life upgrades. But I think all the things that we intend to make for Vantage in terms of accessories, we've already made. The metal coins, the wooden skill tokens, and the player mats. But I guess if there's something that a ton of people ask for, where they're like, I really wish I had this option to upgrade this specific component, maybe we could include that. But no gameplay elements will be added to Vantage. Everything possibly possible for this game is already in this very interconnected system. Omar's already on his third game. Thanks, Omar, for playing already. That's wonderful. I know you were looking forward to it. Kevin says, did the playmats and fancy bits arrive in the U.S.? They have arrived in the U.S. Miniature Market, our fulfillment center in the U.S., is starting to ship them to Champions, I think this afternoon. I think they're processing the containers right now. They just arrived. Melissa also played her first game of Vantage with a friend. That's awesome, Melissa. I hope it went well. Hope you had a good adventure. Julio 2. He says, has someone discovered something you were really looking forward to see online? I mean, people, you know, I've said there are layers to the spoilers and the depths of the world. People have definitely gotten pretty deep into that. I'm trying to think if there's anything like really, really deep. I mean, there are some like really, really difficult things to find in Vantage. And I don't think I've seen anyone find those things yet, but I also don't know if they would post them yet. I did see someone who completed a Destiny within like 10 minutes. They completed it within a few turns. Which is really impressive. And that is certainly possible in the game. You can, once you know, well, this person kind of stumbled into it, but once you know the game pretty well, you'll start to notice things like that there are elements of the world that are a little bit faster to progress on missions and Destinies if you choose to do them. And also a key thing to note about Destinies, a Destiny and Vantage is kind of your final destination where you decide to end up since you weren't expecting to crash on this planet. When you find a Destiny and then you complete the requirements for it, you don't have to read the entry for it right away. It's only when you're ready to actually follow through with that destination, that final destination, that you read that entry and end the game. So this person who I think ended the game in 10 minutes, they didn't actually have to end the game in 10 minutes. They could have just completed that Destiny and then done other things around the world and then completed that Destiny. Aaron says, is there a significance to the location numbers, or were they just assigned in order of when the location card was designed? Good question. There's absolutely no meaning behind the location numbers. It's the type of thing that if Vantage were a video game, the locations wouldn't have numbers because you just move from one place to the next. But for organization in this game, I needed the locations to have numbers. So I'd recommend like not really paying attention to the numbers. Don't try to make sense of them. There certainly are locations that are like 707 might be next to 708. But that doesn't mean anything. And I wouldn't recommend even looking for that because at times you might have location 123 next to 708. Not that that's random, but just the artists worked on different chunks of the world and they had different numerical batches to work on. And so just the way we kind of sewed it together, the location numbers don't mean anything is a short way of saying that. Joseph also played Vantage already. I can't tell you all how happy it makes me that some of you are already playing Vantage. Having just received it. This is a true labor of love for me because I wanted to make a world for you to explore, a completely new world to explore. And so really makes me so happy. Joseph, thank you for your comment. This is really makes my day. I see other comments, people were receiving it. I'm scrolling through this looking for questions so I don't get too far behind here. Aaron says, any chance for an art book? That's a good question. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, Vantage is kind of in a way an art book in itself. I don't know. It's a fair question. There are 1,600 unique illustrations, all illustrated by Valentina, Emilian, and Soren, the three artists in Vantage. So it's a lot of art. It would mean collaboration between 3 different people. I guess it's possible. But we don't have anything planned like that. That would be something where we would need like significant interest for us to try to do that. Julie says, I've seen game times for Vantage can have a wide range. That's correct. When you've played a 2 or 3 player game, what average game length have you experienced? For me, around 90 minutes, but it certainly can go longer than that, depending on what players choose to do. In general, I would recommend, and I kind of wish I put this in the rulebook from the start. I didn't. That's on me. If you ever feel, if you ever feel like the game, in terms of time, that you're ready to start wrapping things up, I highly recommend performing some of the actions printed on the mission card itself, because they will significantly speed up the game. They're designed to do that. They're designed to help you out with the mission, but they're also designed to significantly speed up the mission. And speed up the game length. So if you've played for like an hour and you're like, I hope that we can wrap this up in around 30, 45 minutes, or even 15, 20 minutes, perform some of those actions on the mission. And you can also do that if you're stumbling around and you're like, I wish I had more guidance right now. I'm not comfortable choosing the thing that I want to choose right now. I want guidance from the game. Take a look at those actions on the mission and go ahead and try to perform them. Z says, what was the original inspiration for Vantage? There were two. I mean, I had a few little ideas in my head about a game where you kind of wake up and you don't know where you are and you try to find other players. That was one of the original concepts. But the two games that inspired Vantage were Zelda Breath of the Wild and Time Stories. Time Stories for this first-person perspective. Not open world in Time Stories, but some freedom of choice and movement, but mostly the first-person perspective and a lot of verbal communication based on what you've seen in Time Stories that other players haven't seen. And then Zelda Breath of the Wild, this freedom of exploration, movement, freedom to knowing that there is a big goal, but that along the way to that goal, you might get distracted and sidetracked in a million other ways. Rick says he loves the t-shirt. Oh yeah, this is not a Stonemaier Games t-shirt. This is from Druid City Games. James Hudson. We'll see if he pops in today to see that I'm wearing his shirt. Matt says, how many t-shirts do you own? Most of my wardrobe now, even in the winter now, I wear a lot of t-shirts. A lot, like more than I would ever think, because I rarely buy clothing, Matt. It's not something that I actively pursue, but sometimes I just end up with shirts. And oftentimes when I travel, I did end up with a shirt from Norway. I like to pick one t-shirt when I travel to get that shirt. My answer probably is around 40 t-shirts. Yeah, around 40, I think. Burkhoff says, when can we buy Vantage from Amazon? The worldwide local retailer release date for Vantage is August 15th. And the worldwide online retail release date for Vantage is August 29th. So August 29th, Amazon is an online store, so Amazon would be August 29th. T. Clark says, do you often pass through a location without a location action to save your time, health, or morale, or because you're looking for a certain place? Sometimes I do. Oftentimes, I want to interact with the location that I'm on. It is perfectly normal to do that. I think most players will do that. But there certainly are times where I walk on a location, I'm like, I don't want to do the thing that this location is. I don't want to do any of these things. I want to keep on going, or maybe I'm on a mission to find something specifically, and I'll keep on moving. So it certainly does happen, or I have done it at least. Sean has so I'm talking about how location numbers don't matter. Sean says, I did get a 7-Eleven location that upped my morale, and that tracks with my real life trips to 7-Eleven for Dr. Pepper. I like that, Sean. The Infinite Dude says, I played my first 2 games of Vantage yesterday. I had a huge surprise early on that had me burst out loud laughing. Then a Destiny I uncovered led to an emotional ending. I love that. I love that that Vantage has evoked different types of emotions in you. That really does make me happy. Paul says, Paul just finished the new season of The Bear. Did I watch it yet? I have not watched the new season of The Bear yet. But that's great. I'm glad you liked it more than last season. Last season, I struggled with a little bit, despite admiring what they were going for. I did struggle with it, so I'm excited to see that. I will say one thing. What I've been watching lately, I've been watching a few shows. St. Dennis Medical, half-hour comedy, good lunch show. Game Changers. I continue to absolutely love the show Game Changers on Dropout TV, and the episode this past Monday was awesome. It was really, really funny and really, really creative. A twist on Shark Tank. This is Game Changer, not Changers. Game Changer on Dropout.tv. And we're also watching, we finished Poker Face season 2, and we're now watching High Potential, which is very similar to Poker Face and also very similar to Elsbeth, but a really, really good kind of mystery solving show with a great lead character. I'm reading right now Lady Astronauts book 4. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's the Lady Astronaut series. It's a little bit like the For All Mankind TV series, where it's an alternate history related to humankind going to space and creating habitats in space faster than in the real world. That's the Lady Astronaut series. And I just finished, posted about it on Instagram today, a really, really good rom-com cozy book with an unexpected mystery in it as well, called The Lodge. So I highly recommend The Lodge if you're looking for a cozy rom-com to read this summer. It actually would work also even better in the winter because it's set in a ski lodge, a ski resort. So it's kind of a cozy, warm winter read. Jose says, Vantage wasn't at Dice Tower East. That's correct. Yeah, Vantage just started shipping a few days ago, which was after Dice Tower East. Clay says, how did you organize the story text of the locations and actions during development? Was it a grid system, Word document, or mind map type thing? Clay, a short answer to that question is I had 6 InDesign documents where I had the location art in a grid on those InDesign documents, and I overlaid on top of the location art the text for that location, the descriptive text and the different actions and all the action costs, the action descriptions, and the action results overlaid on top of that. And I did that because I wanted to be able to see the surroundings in case they were in the case they might be relevant to what I was writing for that action. And I wanted to be able to easily transfer from one location to the next while working on it. I had 6 of those documents because it was so much art and so much material that it was too big for one InDesign document. Eventually, though, I had to manually transfer all that text to Google Sheets. It could have been any spreadsheet. I used Google Sheets because I wanted to share it with proofreaders and playtesters. But yeah, I had to transfer that text one by one over to a Google Sheet so that we could playtest it, which took a long time. Curvecut says, have I watched Murderbot yet? I have not. It is on my list, but I haven't watched it yet. Oh, thanks, Frank. I don't think I've seen you comment before, but I appreciate you chiming in. Frank says, I really enjoyed your game design notes videos. I'm a big reality competition fan and was turned on to Got to Get Out by you at some point. My kid and I got lots of laughs watching that. Yeah, that was one of the more recent videos I posted about reality competition shows. One of my favorite genres of shows to watch. And next up, let me ask you all. I have 3 different shows I'm considering for my next reality competition show. I might need to look at my list. One is Destination X. One is, I need to look at my list. One is $1 Million Secret, and the other one is Extracted. Which do you think, Frank or anyone else who's watched any of those shows, would you recommend be the next reality show that I watch and make a video about? Let's see. Just scrolling through looking for questions here. Melissa says, I saw there are some corrections on the website for books and cards. What's the best way to update it? Yeah, so fortunately so far, we've only found a few mistakes in Vantage that impact gameplay. And the types of things that you might never find, like they're hidden deep in a storybook. And so far, I think almost all of them have been things where they just have the wrong card number. They have you get the wrong card number. But the card that you get, even if you're not aware of the errata, the card that you get is still a perfectly viable, good card to get. So, Melissa, if you want to completely ignore the errata, that's completely fine. You can play the game completely ignoring it. However, I am guessing that as many thousands of people play Vantage multiple times, there'll probably be other things that pop up. In a game with 7,000 different actions, there are going to be things that pop up that we missed. And so I'm going to update the FAQ on the Stonemaier Games website with those things as we go. And you're welcome to refer to it as you're playing if you want. In general, I recommend like looking at it once and putting a little dot in the storybook next to those entries. You don't really need to read them at all. I wouldn't actually recommend reading them, but just put a dot next to the entry. And if you ever need to read an entry with a dot, that is a signal to you that you need to go to the FAQ to read about it. There are 2 cards that are missing boost output icons. When you place a challenge die, they should have a way to output a boost, and we missed that. Again, the cards still function. They're still perfectly fine, but they're missing that icon. It'll be somewhat intuitive to you, I think, when you see it, because you'll wonder, how do I get a boost on this card? There isn't a way. There should be a boost output on those cards. I think at some point we will reprint those cards, those 2 cards, maybe anything else that we find, and just offer it on our website for free or for $1 if Shopify doesn't let us put it on there for free. Yeah. So for that, the best way to be informed about that is to subscribe to the Vantage newsletter. Paul says, was there ever another possible name for Vantage? I think Vantage is a perfect name for the game. Paul, has been the name for so long that I don't remember there being another name. Probably at the beginning when I was brainstorming about I might have had another name for it, but it's been Vantage for a long, long time. In fact, I applied for the trademark a long time ago, like 7 years ago, a little bit too early for how long the game took me to make. Ray says, from his understanding of the rules, actions on all cards except for locations are repeatable unless specifically noted otherwise. Is that correct? That is correct. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, it's only the actions on the locations. And it's mostly for theme. If you burn down a bridge, you can't then take another action that says cross that bridge, mostly for theme, but also to encourage players not to just hang out at one location and take all the different actions. And it gives you kind of the freedom to say, I'm going to choose what feels right to me and then move on, because the game isn't letting me choose another action in this location. Yeah. Ian has a thank you about this year's charity auction. So this year's charity auction we'll do in probably mid-October. And we have, over the past weekend, I invited the 10 blogs and YouTube channels and content creators that we are going to feature this year, along with their charities of choice. And Ian's channel is one of them. FG Bison says, I know you're not fond of a helper app, but I feel it might be helpful for solo play and hide the results of choices in other texts. What do you think? I checked out the FAQ for my full answer about this. I think Vantage is best played the way it was designed and created with the storybooks. It's very easy not to read the results of an action. And in Vantage, whenever you choose an action, you are committing to it by choosing it before you even get to look it up in the storybook. So even if your eyes slip a little bit and you see the results, doesn't matter. You've already chosen that action. You can't go back on it. So I think this screen off experience is the best for Vantage. And that's the first experience that I'd like you to have with Vantage. That said, at some point, I think it is fairly likely that on Rule Pop, that's RULEPOP, we will offer a way for people to play Vantage using a storybook app, an optional storybook app, with the one advantage to that being that it will have these updates that we've mentioned in the errata. They'll be included in that app. I still think the best way to play Vantage is without the app, or without any possible hypothetical feature app, playing with the actual tangible storybooks where you don't turn on a screen. But I think it is something likely that we'll offer at some point. And I'll survey people after you've actually played Vantage and had that experience of playing with the storybooks. I'll poll people to see if it's still something people want. Steven says, what was your workload like designing a spherical topographical map of spaces, and how many at each equator line, and when making challenge paths or dead ends? I mean, I used a grid system to create Vantage. It's a grid of a bunch of locations, a giant grid. Didn't think much. I didn't think about the equator. I thought about biomes. I was working in different biomes of the world. I wouldn't say there are many dead ends in Vantage. Like the game says yes at every turn. Yes, you can do this. Yes, it may be difficult, but yes, you can do this. Yes, this might hurt you a little bit, but yes, you can do this. But there are so many different interconnected elements of Vantage. That was a fun challenge, but it did help that Vantage is not a campaign game. So even though there are a lot of interconnected things, it wasn't like in Charterstone, where if I changed something way down a path in the game, that I had to go back and figure out all the different other things along the way, because that thing was in game 8 and it affects things from games 1 through 7 along the way. Didn't have to do that in Vantage because it isn't a campaign game. Stuart says, have you watched Severance? Just finished season 2 and I'm so hooked. I have watched Severance. Yeah, we're up to date on Severance. And wow, yeah, season 2 reveals quite a bit in Severance. I see some other people liking Game Changer and Taskmaster as well. Let's see. I see. Oh, so I had the pleasure of joining Chris, who is popping in to say hi here. I joined Chris and Mike on their YouTube channel, The Full 42. We had a wonderful chat. Chris, it was great to connect with you after all these years and have a nice chat with you and Mike. That will be live, I think, in about a week and a half on the Full 42 YouTube channel. I'll share that when it goes live. Also had a nice chat. What was this chat that I had the other day? I'll look it up while I'm chatting. I had a nice chat. I've had a few nice. I had one with the Dungeon Dive. Daniel at the Dungeon Dive. I had that chat the other day, but that one isn't live yet. The one that did just go live. Oh, no, the Full 42 is live. I'm thinking of a different one. I'm sorry. The Full 42 is available now if you want to go check that out. That chat is available now. Let's see. Kevin says, have you played Ink on Board Game Arena yet? It's a fantastic abstract tile laying game. I have not played Ink, but I'll make a note of that, Kevin. Yeah, I don't think I've actually even heard of Ink. Some games I played lately, including a really good abstract game called Gloomies. It was a giveaway game on the gaming cruise that I went on recently, and we played it yesterday and had a great time playing it. We also enjoyed our play of Xenophera Galactic Market, an auction game. And what else did I play? Also, over the weekend, I played a game of Hot Streak. I played, I keep wanting to say Slay the Princess. Is that the right name? What is the game from Bezier Games? It's a trick avoidance game, like Hearts, but with princesses. Is it Slay the Princess? I don't know. I wrote down Princess, but I'm thinking on the cuff I could remember the name, but no, I can only remember Princess. I also played Kalimala. Really enjoyed that worker placement game, and Here Lies. I played that with a few friends over the weekend. We also have some playtests. I've been doing some playtests on a game that I've been working on, and we also have some submission playtests today. I have some coworkers coming over to do some submission consideration testing. Corey from Blue Falcon says, have I watched Alice in Borderland? I have not watched that. He says he's ordered all 9 graphic novels before finishing season 2. So good if you like sci-fi dystopian style shows. I do love that style show, and I haven't heard of it. So I'm making a note about that as well. Borderland. Awesome. Thanks for that recommendation, Corey. I have a few things to say about movies, but I'll catch up on your questions first if possible. Clay says, do you have any particular artists or albums that you listen to during Vantage play sessions or development? I listen to a lot of, actually 2 things. One, Breath of the Wild soundtrack. Listen to that a lot. And there's a YouTube channel called Blue Turtle that just it offers background music with different vibes, different, like there's like a cozy cafe one. There's a going exploring one. There's a going there's lots of different exploring ones in different locations, but they're just background music, no words, just music. That's Blue Turtle. Listen to Blue Turtle a lot while getting immersed in writing all the stuff that you'll find in Vantage. Grace says, do you have a Goodreads account? I do have a Goodreads account. I think it's probably under Jamey Stegmaier. And yeah, I do rate the books that I read, and I put them on Goodreads. I also talk about the books that I read and the movies I watch, the shows I watch, the content that I consume other than games. I talk about that on my personal blog, jameystegmaier.com. So I think I'm Jamey Stegmaier on Goodreads. I know that my website is jameystegmaier.com for all the stuff that I consume other than games. Blues says, really loving my solo plays of Vantage. Stayed up late to play. I have a 5-player game night on Friday. Any advice for handling the larger player counts? I'd be aware that at higher player counts, the game's going to be a little bit easier, but it will also last a little longer. Not necessarily in terms of downtime, because you're always involved and engaged on every player's turn in Vantage, but there's longer time between turns. I would recommend teaching in the way that I look at my how to teach video. I wouldn't recommend saying much at all before you start the game. Give them the general overview of what you're doing, and then jump in and maybe help the player to your left take their first turn. Just walk them through the steps on the reference guide, and then you're off to the races after that. The last thing I'd recommend is that the game might take longer at higher player counts. Even though it's easier, it might also take longer. And so that is another reason that at a certain point after a couple hours, you might say, okay, we need to start to move towards wrapping this up. And that's when you might choose to perform some of the actions on your mission card. I see some recommendations. I asked for reality competition shows. I see a few people picking Extracted as our first pick. Also see Destination. Cody his sister-in-law was an executive producer for Destination X. That's pretty cool. Good vote for that show. Vague Destiny also asked about the 5 to 6 player experience. Hopefully I answered that a second ago in that answer, but if I didn't, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to go deeper into it. Also, more recommendations for Scavenger's Reign, which I still haven't watched, but I need to. A lot of people have recommended it in relation to Vantage. Red says, you typically announce and release new games in a very short time span. However, with Vantage, you announced it a year before its actual release. That's correct. Yeah, the reason for that is that I just had so many stories to tell about the process of creating Vantage that cramming them into a week or two before the release didn't feel like the right way to go. And also, it's a fairly expensive game to make, so I wanted to, as best possible, gauge demand in advance to make sure that we made enough copies for the first print run. I think it was the right call for Vantage. I think it's also the right call that we don't do that for most games, because I can tell most stories about games in a tighter space and in a tighter time frame, and have a tighter anticipation gap. We announce something, you get excited about it, you learn about it, and then you can buy it, and it ships to you a few days later, all within the span of maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. Garrett says, anything new hitting your Gable tonight at game night? I actually don't. Well, yes, probably, but I don't know what we're playing tonight. I know that we will have some games at game night tonight, but I don't know what they'll be yet. Vague Destiny says, if you reprint the cards, would you also consider stickers for the rulebook entries? Yes. Yeah, I think we will. I don't think they're entirely necessary, but I know people like the polished look of a full color professionally printed sticker. So I think that is likely that we would include that. Again, the entries that we found errata for, they're entries that you may never see, that are likely that you'll never see, because there's so many different actions in Vantage. And even if you do see them, the card that you get is perfectly fine. It's just maybe not the exact correct card that we intended you to get, but it's still a good card that will help you. Helen says, a while ago you asked us what we would do if a large amount of money appeared in our bank account. I think 19,000 or not. Yeah, it was 19,000 that I asked about. Have you revealed what the reason was for this question? I have not. I'm still pondering it myself, but there was an idea that I had. I may or may not pursue it, but yeah, there was a reason for that, Helen. Let's see. Red, I think I answered your question, but if I didn't, let me know about that early announcement. I think it's unlikely I would do that again in the future, but possible. So Troy says, Vantage flat earth theory. So Troy, even though I designed Vantage in a grid, the grid completely wraps around itself. So it is a spherical planet that you can walk all the way around. You could spend your entire game just walking all the way around the planet like this and end up potentially, if you can do it efficiently enough and not die along the way, you can get back to the place you started. Same for walking around from right to left or left to right. So it is definitely a sphere. Brian points out from accessibility, Brian, I'm glad you pointed this out, that that a storybook app is more vision friendly than printed storybooks. I totally agree with that, Brian. And that is an excellent point, a good reason for us to consider a storybook app. Ray says, I provided consultation for Ink. But Ink is not ringing a bell for me. I do know there is a game called Gambit on... Ray, you're thinking of Inkborn. Inkborn is the game that I'm consulting on. That is a digital game. It's not on Board Game Arena. It's a digital game. There is also a digital game called Gambit on Kickstarter right now that Stonemaier gave permission to the creators of Gambit to include... I don't want to say include our worlds in the game, but include kind of elements of our games a little bit, elements of our worlds in the game. So like there is a Wingspan-inspired character in Gambit, and a few other worlds of ours are in this game. So I'm excited to see what they do with I don't want to call it an abstract game because it is thematic, a theme-first game as far as I'm aware. But I'm excited to see what they do with this game on Kickstarter if it gets funded. So that's Gambit on Kickstarter right now. I also mentioned I'll do this before I get to other comments. I mentioned in the subject line about movies. I watched 2 movies over the weekend. Both were, in my opinion, really solid movies that maybe had a few little things that didn't quite hook me. I had very high expectations for these movies, and they didn't quite hook me as much as I thought they would. But I still really enjoyed them and would still recommend them. I watched Superman in the theaters this past weekend, and I really did like a lot about it. I think the most interesting thing about Superman and Superman movies in general is when Superman, who is essentially invincible, is presented with really difficult problems that he can't just punch his way out of. And I think that is really interesting. I think some of them are presented really well by multiple different characters in the movie. I think that is really well done. There is still some punching, and I think that brought the movie down a little bit for me, among some other elements. But I think that is really well done in Superman. I also watched the movie Sinners from who I think is maybe one of the top 5 directors working today, Ryan Coogler. He is incredible. Like the cinematography in Sinners, which is, he has another cinematographer that he works with, but I think he still plays a role in it, is just incredible. It's stunning in this movie Sinners, which is set in around the 1930s in the South in America. It's about the characters, it's about the history, it's about that place in history, but with a supernatural twist to it. And 95% of the movie I absolutely loved. There's a part that gets a little gory and violent for about 10 minutes that I kind of wished, I don't think the movie needed that. And it distracted me from some of the elements that I thought made the movie so good without that. But it was also a messy, violent time in history. And so I get why it was in the movie. But yeah, Sinner, Superman, two really impressive movies. But I think I'm still kind of hoping for that magical summer movie to come along, and maybe Fantastic Four will be that movie in a few weeks. We'll see. Have any of you had what is your favorite movie of the summer? Favorite movie that you've watched in the last few months so far? Oh, I wanted to let me see if I had a question of the day for you today. Oh yeah, I know what I'm going to be asking tomorrow, but I think I'll ask the question now. But you don't have to tell me the answer yet because I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to write about this tomorrow and how I'll phrase it. But tomorrow, I think I'm going to write a little bit about bad bosses. And I want to put a positive spin on it as I try to do. But basically what I have learned from, and I don't even want to say that they're bad bosses, but maybe bosses that you've had, leaders that you've had, where they fell short in some key areas and they did some things that you wish they hadn't done. And so I'm going to write about this and talk about what I've learned from them and how I've tried to apply them in a positive way, and how I, as a coworker, but kind of a boss to my coworkers, as the owner of Stonemaier Games, or one of the owners, how sometimes I certainly also fall short and do things where I'm like, oh wow, that is the type of thing that I would be disappointed in my boss if they did that, and I need to be aware of that. So that's why I'm thinking about this. I want to be a better person, I want to be a better coworker, and I want to be a better boss. And so sometimes that means looking back at the types of things that my past bosses did that really didn't resonate with me and learning from that. So I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that's constructive. But the question I'll probably be asking in some way tomorrow is, what have you learned from bosses that fell short for you, or leaders that fell short for you, that you learned from and hopefully try to apply better if you're ever in that boss or leadership position yourself. Thank you, Aaron, and a few others for clarifying that it isn't Slay the Princess. That's a video game. It's Rebel Princess, which is the card game that I was talking about, that I played the expansion for the other day. And Jeremy mentions that the designer of Xenophobia Galactic Market is Liz Gatra, who has shown this game at the Stonemaier Games Design Day. I finally get to play the final version on my table the other day. I was a backer. Johnny says, any fun stories or thoughts now that you're a few months into sponsoring a professional disc golf player? It's made me root for Big Germ even more, Johnny. I love rooting for Big Germ in general, Jeremy Colling, but it's even more fun to do that now that we're an official sponsor of him. It's also been fun to see his true love and passion for Wingspan and the world of Wingspan, including the release of our World of Wingspan t-shirt that we put on our web store last week. Jeremy was a big collaborator in the design of that shirt with Miles Bensky, the artist. FG Bison it talks about the fate of the Fellowship Dice Tower. Reminds me of Wingspan Dice Tower with a couple steps higher in complexity. Have I played the game yet? I have not played Fate of the Fellowship yet, but I'm hoping to play it at some point. Joshua says, what Kickstarter campaigns have you backed recently that are worth looking at? I always like learning from others about this. This is a question that could be for anyone to answer. For me, I backed Gambit, that video game I talked about a few seconds ago. Also backed Cats versus Cucumbers because I love cats. I don't back every cat game, but I like the idea of this game. I push your luck, cats, cucumbers, yeah. And I also am backing Beach Day. Beach Day is a kind of a tile overlapping game that a friend highly recommended. So I'm checking out Beach Day as a backer on Kickstarter right now. What about you? Anything fun, Joshua, that you're backing? Aaron played Apotha Bakery. I'm very curious about that one. That looks like my style of game, Aaron. Michael says, do people from board game events usually recognize you as the designer and publisher? Tell us a story in which a gamer you played with has no idea who you are. I generally assume that no one knows who I am. But at the gaming cruise that I went on recently, I was just an attendee. But Jeff did announce at the beginning that there were some game designers there, including Richard Breeze, who does the Keyflower series. I got to eat dinner with Richard almost every night, have some wonderful conversations with him. But he announced that Richard and I were there, and so people who have heard of us, I guess, were then aware that we were there and ended up playing some games with us. I know there have been some things, I don't have a specific story, but at Geekway to the West, there have definitely been some times where I've been playing a game with someone, maybe even one of our games, and someone didn't realize that it was our game and that I was connected to the game in that way until midway through the game. Actually, that did happen that happened with a guy named Clint, who realized while I was playing Galactic Cruise on the cruise that I'm not connected to that game, but that I am a designer, and that he recognized me while we were playing. Which is always neat. Neat for someone to see you, to know you. That always feels good in any form. Some other people are saying they love Blue Turtle as well. I see May and Stewart mentioning that. Nick says, any future plans for Libertalia? Could we ever see an edition with art more akin to what was in the original version? I really like the way that we put Libertalia out there. I like that I think there were some big problematic elements with the art in the original Libertalia. Kind of that Pirates of the Caribbean style, mostly men. So yeah, I prefer our version significantly more, I would say, than the original version's art. And in terms of mechanisms, I think we already put everything in the game that needed to be there, other than the promo pack that were released that added more tiles that expand the meaning of the loot tokens in the game. But they're kind of crammed into the box now. They just barely fit in the box. So yeah, I think I would say Libertalia is complete. I won't 100% say that because something I guess could come along, but nothing else is in the works. Chris says, am I going to Gen Con? I don't have plans to go to Gen Con at this time, but maybe I'll drop in for a day to look at what's happening with Vantage there. We'll see, but I don't have any plans to go, Chris. Jeremy says, have you read your review copy of 101 Board Games to Try Before You Die from Jared? I have looked at parts of it, Jeremy. I like to consume it in little bits and pieces, but this is from Jared Carmichael. I think 3 Minute Board Games is his YouTube channel. He's a great book, I think, titled here, 101 Board Games to Try Before You Die. It's not a morbid book. It's just reasons to try 101 different games that he talks about in the book. Benjamin Handy talks about The Devil's Plan. Yeah, Benjamin, I love The Devil's Plan. I have a video that either just came out about it or will come out about it very soon. I think it already came out, but I do have a video about The Devil's Plan. The current season, we just finished the current season of it. Dominic says, I saw mention that Vantage was included as an Easter egg in a former Stonemaier game. Are there discoverable Easter eggs in Vantage that might allude to other future games as well? I don't think so, Dominic. That was a specific case in Between Two Castles where we did sneak some future spoilers onto a game shelf in the game room in Between Two Castles, but I don't think we do that in other games. Julio, I have not played Shackleton Base yet. I'm curious about it, but I haven't played it yet. Fake Destiny says, picked up Rolling Realms and many promos along with their Vantage order. Photocopying the cards for 7+ players should be fine, right? I mean, I generally recommend against photocopying copyrighted material. I can't stop you from doing that, of course, but it is something that you could do. Rolling Realms does scale up to any number of players. Like it's by design, it has no player interaction. So with multiple copies of the promos, multiple copies of Rolling Realms, you could play with other players. I think another way that you could do this is to post online that you're looking to get some of the cards that you already have, because some people might only play Rolling Realms at player count of 2. And so they may never use some of the cards and might be willing to trade with you or might be able to sell you some of their extra cards. Elaine says, did I miss a Canada shipping update? The overall update for shipping so far is that champion orders for Vantage are actively shipping, and if you will likely get a tracking number as a champion by the middle of next week. If you're not a champion, you'll probably get a shipping notification over the next 2 weeks, starting next Wednesday. But yeah, if you're a champion orders are actively shipping, and you'll know your order is shipped because you'll get a tracking notification for it. I think most fulfillment centers are about a third of the way through their shipments so far, which is pretty good. They've only had, I don't know, 5 business days so far, 4 business days. Stace of Spades says, you've mentioned in the past that Scythe is complete and now Vantage is considered complete. Are other Stonemaier games considered complete? That's a good question, Stace. Usually the signal that a game is complete is if we release a complete rule book. It isn't a hard and fast rule for it because there is like the future is uncertain. It's possible for any game that something really, really cool will come along and I'll be like, you know, I want to put this in the game somehow. I want to make a way to make this work. I want to find a way to make this work. But games with complete rule books so far are Scythe and Tapestry. Wingspan, we did consolidate all the rules into Wingspan Asia, but that's just because Wingspan Asia is a standalone game. Wingspan is not complete. So yeah, I haven't put a hard completion on any other games, but yeah. But I mentioned Libertalia a few minutes ago. Libertalia is most likely, I consider it complete. We're not actively working on anything for Libertalia. Paul says, when it comes to errata in most games, do you follow it or just go with the base rules? Paul says, for example, I ignore the faction combinations that are banned in many gaming communities for Scythe. What are your thoughts? Are they super important for you to follow, or are they more recommendations for the best possible experience? In general, I think we're looking for errata, rules errata in particular, which is pretty rare, but we do every now and then add a recommended variant. We have one of these in Red Rising, for example, that I would recommend playing with. There are strong recommendations for generally for more experienced players with those games. So like with Tapestry, we have various revised civs over the years, including finally an official final revised civ pack. But if you play Tapestry out of the box and you happen to have an older copy with the unrevised civs, it works just fine. It plays just fine. It's only like when you go deep into the game that you might start to notice that some civs are a little stronger or a little weaker than others. So in general, when I play games, I'm generally not aware of any errata like that. I just play the game as it is, and I'm perfectly happy playing the game as it is that way. Benjamin says, do you have any other long gestating games that might see the light of day anytime soon? I don't know about anytime soon, but I do have like a long-running game ideas that I'd like to bring to life someday if I find the right way to bring them to life in a way that is worth doing, is worth my time and energy, is worth your investment in the game. But they're mostly still in the idea stage at this point. Board Games, James says, can you explain launch products more? Looking at Vantage in Canada, should I buy from me or wait until it hits stores or store pre-orders? So for us, when we make a game, we don't do like pre-orders or anything like that. In general, we wait until we have fully made that game and that it has arrived in fulfillment centers before we launch it on our web store for people to buy. And not only are they buying it, but they know that it's going to be shipped to them over the next few weeks. That's a launch product for us. For our games, we also have, like for Vantage right now, we have launched it last week. We're currently shipping it to champions. It'll ship the non-champions after that all throughout July. And then on August 15th is the local retail release. And on August 29th is the online retail release. You can buy Vantage however. If you want it right away, you can buy it directly from us. If you want to support your local store, we love that too. Support your local store, pre-order it from your local store. You can get it starting on August 15th from your store. It'll also be at Gen Con. We'll have some copies of Gen Con too. Watch Tyrant says, Vantage ordering experience was great. Talking about the launch process, way cheaper than expected, super fast delivery, and everything looks great. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for saying that. Also got the apiary tokens. I'm glad to hear that as well. Board Game James says, any plans on sending more review copies or coupons before I buy? No, we have now sent all review copies for Vantage, at least for the first few months. And the discount for Vantage, the launch discount for Vantage ended on Sunday, but it is still discounted on our web store if you want to get it discounted. And also, Stonemaier Champions always save 20% on Vantage. So if you're a Stonemaier Champion, you can save 20% out of the gate on everything that you purchase for the next year, including anything that you put into your cart when you become a champion. Helen reminds me, what's my treat of the day? I have a few different treats of the day from Norway. I have these two candy bars. I won't eat both of them today. I may not even eat either of them today, but I will probably try one of them. This is Smash and Kivik Lunsk. I cannot pronounce that word at all, but this is similar to a Kit Kat, I've heard. And this is similar to, I actually don't know what it's similar to, but it sounds salty and sweet and chocolatey and delicious. So these Norwegian candy bars are my potential treats of the day today. Harrison has a good point. I didn't know how bad my boss was until I got a new job with a really good boss. And Harrison, I'm glad you said it that way, because it reminds me that if I do ask about bad boss traits tomorrow or stories, that to make sure it's a positive thing, I think I'll also ask about good boss traits. When you have that really good boss, what the types of things that you love that they do that you would love other bosses and leaders to emulate. Is there a difference in the Vantage on your site for Canada versus what is offered in stores at a lower cost? We've made exactly one version of Vantage for everyone. So every copy of Vantage available now is exactly the same. Unless there are like packing mistakes in one of the copies, which does happen, but that is not a universal thing. Every copy should be entirely the same. Clay says, favorite movie of the year so far has been 28 Years Later. Also, you may have answered this before, but do you have a headcanon for carrying over knowledge from game to game in Vantage? I do. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part of Vantage of learning about the lore of the world, learning about different types of actions and what they do, learning about what makes certain actions more difficult or easier than others. There's things that the game does not spell out for you that you need to discover for yourself as you play. There's some things that might surprise you the first time you take them, and then, or that you perform an action, you're like, oh, I didn't know it was going to do that. I didn't know it would be that hard or that easy. And then you know that from then on. So yeah, I do have a general headcanon for that as I play Vantage. I still often do the thing on any given location that is most compelling to me at that moment, but I do have that accumulated information. And that's a reason, I think, to play Vantage more than once. It's a reason also to talk about it as you're playing Vantage with the other players at the table, if you are playing multiplayer, so they can learn from what you're learning. See some other people excited about Vantage. Steve also asked, will I be at Gen Con? I don't plan on, but maybe I'll drop in real quick. Darkcast says, have I played Cathood? I have not played Cathood. I don't think I even know anything about that. What is Cathood all about? Paul says, I was talking about when I backed on Kickstarter on Paul interviewed the designer of Beach Day, one of the games that I'm backing, on Paul's podcast. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that he's a great guy. Scrolling through looking for questions right here. Nate says, did Vantage ever have a different working title? Not that I can remember. It's been Vantage for a long, long time. It for at least the last 7 years, it has been Vantage. I don't think it was close to being named something else. I'm really happy with the name. I think that name represents what the game is. Page 3 Game says, how's the lawsuit going? We do have a lawsuit that essentially says that it is not within the president's power to implement tariffs. And I think we've continued to see that the president is really just willy-nilly implementing tariffs all over the place. It is, even though, importantly, the countries that the president is putting tariffs on, those countries are not paying the tariffs. It is American companies or any importing company who imports stuff into the U.S., including many American companies, who are paying the tariff tax. It is still a big deal. It is still a big problem. As for our lawsuit, it is, unfortunately, it got bumped behind some other lawsuits that have similar reasons for why it shouldn't be in the president's power to do this. And I'm talking about the president as an entity, not this current specific president. Any president, I don't think, should have the power to willy-nilly implement tariff taxes the way they are. So long story short, our lawsuit is still there, but it's the 2 lawsuits that actually got through to the Supreme Court will be heard first. I don't know when they will be heard. Benjamin says, what's your balance between your own designs and publishing games from other designers? Do you try to keep a balance, or do you just look to publish the best games regardless of source? In general, best games regardless of source, but on a kind of a day-to-day basis, I am working on what is relevant at that time. Like, we have a few products right now that are in the proofreading oversight graphic design stage. So I work on that as long as it's necessary for that day. Then I might jump over to one of my designs to working on that for an hour or so. And then I might jump over to a game that needs some blind playtesting or development. I bounce around a lot from different projects because all different projects have different needs and are at different stages at any given time. David says, do you feel that the extended promotion of Vantage ahead of the release made the launch easier? Fewer questions or unknowns? Would you do that again? I mean, it certainly meant, like, the updates for Vantage that I've released over the last 14, 15 months, they took a lot of time to put those together. And so I'm glad that I didn't try to fit them into a week or two. I think it certainly answered some questions in advance, but I think actually hearing about what Vantage is different than actually playing Vantage. Also, I've noticed that even though all those updates are archived on our website and put into the FAQ, people still ask a lot of the same questions over and over again. So I think that is always, and that is okay for people to ask those questions, but it's a reminder to me that no matter how much content is out there about a game, it's still easiest for someone to type in a question and click send rather than actually trying to look up the answer to that question. So I don't think it made things all that much easier. Would I do it again? Probably not. I mean, it would depend. If there's another game like Vantage that has such big stories to tell about the design and development that it will take a lot of time to put those stories together, then I might do it again. But otherwise, it's still probably going to be our regular anticipation gap schedule where we announce that something exists, we share the stories behind it, we put it up on our web store, and we start to ship it all within around 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a month. Clay says, you mentioned the show Game Changer. Have you read the book, The Game Changers by Tim Clare? Super interesting look at the history of board games all the way back to the ancient world. I have not read that, but I appreciate that recommendation. I have not read The Game Changers. Soggy Sunshine says, did the tariffs affect the Vantage price, or was it always going to be the price it is? This was actually one of the most painful parts about Vantage. I've worked for so long to offer Vantage at what I feel is a fair and reasonable price. It's been a many-year process to do that. So to have someone come in at the very end and say, nope, you got to increase that by 30% was not something I wanted to hear, and something that I really fought against, including a lawsuit. So no, we did not raise the Vantage price as a result. We worked too long to keep it at a reasonable price that I wasn't going to increase it by 30% at the last minute just because of a unfortunate situation in the U.S. However, what we did do, just as much, really more about raising awareness for how tariffs impact tariffs are paid by the importing companies, oftentimes American companies. We put a tariff offset gift card at checkout on our web store. So when you buy Vantage on our website, or when you buy anything on our web store now, on the US web store, you will see an option to add a $3 gift card. That $3 represents the 30% tariffs that we pay when we bring our games into the US. It's more of a reminder that tariffs are a thing. They are happening. They impact American companies, than it is truly an offset, because someone could use that gift card, which is perfectly fine, or you can choose not to spend that gift card later on, and then it just lets us keep that money and helps us offset the tariff expenses a little bit. But for example, for Vantage, and over the last week, I think people have spent around $6,000 on tariff offset gift cards on the US web store. Our actual expenses, our actual tariff taxes that we paid on Vantage and Vantage products are around $100,000. It's a significantly higher amount. Billy says, are any Stonemaier games going to be in the upcoming Bezier project, The Game Makers? I think a few of our games are going to be there. Yeah, I give them permission for a few of our games. A few people have asked about Champion shipping update in Canada. Canadian, or for all regions, Champion shipping is ongoing right now. It's still going to take probably through next Wednesday before all Champions get their shipping notification in all different areas of the world. Scrolling through to see if there are any other questions before I wrap up today. Nick says, do you have a favorite game that flew under the mainstream radar? For example, I love The Hobbit and Unexpected Party, but never heard it mentioned anywhere else. I certainly have some games like this. It's tough for me to think of them off the cuff, but let's look at my shelf to see if anything jumps out as being a game that I love that flew a little under the radar. Maybe Dice Miner. I really love Dice Miner, but I don't hear it talked about all that much. I think it's a really nice dice drafting game. Cameron says, is there a list anywhere with all your published board games and their pre-release code names? There is a list of all of our games, but not paired with the code names. I don't even think I would remember at this point, but you probably could go back and figure it out. May says, do you think Stonemaier would run anything like design contests? May, I have tried that a long time ago, and I realized that one thing doesn't work about design contests. And the thing is that you have to have a winner. And as we found through, I know a lot of people put a lot of work into their designs, but not everything is going to be a winner for Stonemaier Games when we have games submitted to us. So it's why we have a submission process where we can consider games, but we're not guaranteeing to anyone when they submit. When we have 100 different people submit games to us, we aren't promising that we're going to pick one of them. We're going to pick the game that we fall in love with, that we really think is worth putting our time and effort into and bringing to you. So no, we're not going to do game design contests because we tried it and it didn't work. but rather we have our regular submission process to find the right games for us. Here we go. Dark Acid says Cat Hood is an area control game. And he's also a cat, or they're also a cat lover. Seems like a fun game. There are a few reviews on Board Game Geek. Cool. Yeah, let me know what you think about it when you play it. There are a lot of cat games out there, so I'm not going to buy all of them, but I want to find. I love hearing about the best cat games. If there's some that would resonate with me, at least not best, but would resonate with me. Chad says, should the next season of Survivor be on the Vantage planet? That would be fun. That'd be pretty cool. Rico says, yeah, we're only asking U.S. customers to consider the tariff offset gift card. Yeah. Chad says, is there a way in the game to learn more about the Traveler? There absolutely is. Yeah, talk to the Traveler. You will learn a lot about the Traveler by talking to the Traveler. And Mark says, where can I find the variant you mentioned for Red Rising? It's on the FAQ on our website for Red Rising. The variant, if I can remember offhand, is that if you can't ever banish a character from someone's hand if it would take them below their starting hand count. There are a few cards in Vantage that banish other cards from hands, and I think it was honestly a poor design decision on my part to have that happen in such a way that could reduce someone's hand count below their starting hand count. So the variant is that you just can't do that. But if they have 7 cards, sure, you can banish that card and take it down and take their hand count down a little bit again. Well, that hour flew by. We've gone a little bit over, but really flew by. Thank you so much for your time today. I think I covered everything. Gambit on Kickstarter, connected to Stonemaier Games a little bit, talking about Vantage shipping. Vantage Champion shipping is actively happening right now. Will continue to happen through next Wednesday. And yeah, a lot of other stuff that we talked about today. But yeah, join me tomorrow for tomorrow's conversation about bosses and leaders, good and bad, what you've learned from them. We'll do that on on Facebook and on the Stonemaier Games blog. And yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day. If you think of any other questions, let me know in the comments on YouTube, and I'm happy to answer them. Or if I missed your question today, as long as it wasn't a spoiler question, of course. Have a great day. Take care. I'll see you later.